Welcome to an island surrounded by sea, where the docks and fishing villages start the outer edge of the adventure. Travel inland to the countryside and farms, and there, cutting through, lies several railway lines. Follow the rails and end up finding an assortment of colourful engines. Engines of all shapes and sizes, from old to new, steam to diesel, the really useful crew. See the infrastructure rolling right along the rails, and hear the stories they endeavour each and every day. These are Trackmaster Productions' Thomas Stories. It was late evening on Sodor, and Thomas was puffing along the tracks, taking a goods train to the docks. It was getting late and he was tired. "Boo!" they said. Thomas jumped and was very cross. "Bill and Ben, please stop at your pranks," puffed Thomas crossly. "We're just trying to have a bit of fun," said Bill. "Yeah, don't water down our fire just because you can't handle a scare," puffed Ben. Thomas was fuming. Thomas was puffing home in the dark. The night air was cool and the moonlight shone through the night sky. As Thomas rounded a bend, he heard a strange noise. "What was that?" thought Thomas. Just then, two red eyes cut through the darkness. "Cinders and ashes!" cried Thomas. As Thomas chuffed closer, the two eyes disappeared. "What was that?" asked Thomas. Thomas was at Tidmouth Sheds telling the other engines what he had encountered. It had glowing red eyes, and it just disappeared in the thin air. The engines were surprised and worried. "It may be the same ghost train I encountered a year ago, but it must have evolved." Gordon sniffed. "How can it evolve? It just doesn't seem logical for a machine to suddenly become more powerful without being taken apart, like when Henry had his overhaul at Crewe." "I don't think it's an engine of any kind. If it can survive being thrown into molten steel and still be alive, it must be some kind of entity," said Percy. "Anyway, I have to deliver the mail. If I find anything, I'll let you know." Percy puffed away and the engines went to sleep. As the yards were silent, the ghost train was hunting for fuel. It rolled through the lines of trucks, wheezing and wheezing clouds of steam. Percy was steaming through the yards when the ghost train appeared in front of him and rolled away. He was shocked and barely moved. "What's wrong? You look as if you've seen a ghost," said his driver. Percy started off again, and with every wheel turn, he was more frightened than ever. The next morning, Thomas was steaming along his branch line. The sun shone, and the leaves were dancing all around. As he popped in the Farquhar station, Sir Top Hat was on the platform. "Ah, Thomas, I'm needing you to pull some trucks to the docks tonight. They will be waiting at Knapford station for you." And Sir Top Hat left. Thomas puffed away with his passengers and pulled in at Elspeth station. "I hate working at night. I don't want to encounter those red eyes again," said Thomas nervously. Just then, Percy puffed in. "Why were you in the sheds this morning?" asked Thomas. "I slept in the goods shed. I didn't want to puff home alone in the dark," said Percy. Pa, you're such a scared engine. I have to be out tonight. Luckily, I won't be able to hear your so-called encounter with the ghost train," said Thomas. Percy was cross and puffed away. That night, Thomas was ready to leave the sheds. He looked over at Percy's berth. It was empty. Again. He set off and steamed through the night. Crooked trees casted strange shapes along the rails, and the moon dimly lit up the night. As Thomas rounded a bend, he heard a faint shuffling sound. As it got louder and louder, Thomas's boiler grew colder and colder. Thomas stopped outside of Henry's tunnel. He peered into the black hole, scared. Suddenly, Thomas saw a bright light, and he heard a whistle. A silver tank engine appeared in front of him. "Help!" cried Thomas. Thomas raced backwards as fast as he could. The silver engine was right on his buffers. Thomas was racing so fast that he took a bend too quickly. He was hurled into the ground, and the silver engine rolled up to him.
"It's been a long time, Thomas, and this time I won't let you get away."
The tank engine rolled forward. "Timothy," whispered Thomas. The next morning, Thomas was sent to the works. He couldn't get the visions from last night out of his smoke box.
"Thomas!"
"Thomas," said Percy. "No, Timothy, get away from me," wailed Thomas. "I'm nowhere near you," said Timothy, the oil-burning engine. "I delivered your goods train that was at the docks last night," said Percy. "Thank you, Percy." "I'm glad you helped me," said Thomas. Sir Topham Hatt appeared. "Dear, oh dear, Thomas, you and Percy recently have been talking nonsense about ghost trains, and it's been causing confusion and delay. If I hear one more word about your silly ghost stories, you will be in the shed for a week. I know it's Halloween, and I know you want to have a bit of fun, but there is a fine line between fun and confusion. Now, Thomas, tonight, you and Percy will be delivering the mail, and I expect to hear no nonsense." "Good day," he said, and left. Thomas was lowered down onto the rails. "All fixed," said the workman. Thomas and Percy set off. Thomas and Percy worked hard all day, and they didn't mention ghosts of any sort. They were both reliable and right on time. Later that night at the docks, Cranky was unloading some mailbags from the ships. "Here you go, the last of the mailbags," said Cranky. "Thank you, Cranky, and keep an eye out for the Thomas, remember what Sir Topham Hatt said," popped Percy. "Oh, right," said Thomas, and they set off. Thomas and Percy delivered the mail to and from the stations. They were right on time, and the station masters were very happy. Finally, they both puffed in their nose at the station. They were tired and out of breath. "We did it, just like old times, Percy. Well done." A few days later, Thomas and Percy tried to find out why Timothy had retreated. They both puffed into the Smelters yard and asked Harry and Bert, but they didn't know. Thomas and Percy asked around. Until they saw Sir Topham Hatt standing on the platform at the docks. Thomas and Percy sneaked out of the docks as quietly as they could. Thomas stopped and thought. Then an idea flew into his funnel. "Edward and Henry may know," said Thomas. "Are you sure, Thomas?" asked Percy. "They are the oldest engines on Sodor, and they would have to know why Timothy retreated," puffed Thomas. That night Thomas asked Henry and Edward the question. Sadly, they didn't know. "But I know how to get Timothy from the other side to Sodor," said Edward. "How?" asked Thomas. "You go to Henry's tunnel and wait until you hear a chuffing. Then say his name 3 times and he will appear," said Edward. Thomas and Percy were nervous. That night Thomas and Percy set off to Henry's tunnel. Thomas puffed up to the mouth and chuffed bravely. "Here goes. Timothy. Timothy. Timothy." Just then a light appeared and chuffed out Timothy. "Hello, I've got a question for you," Thomas said. "What was it with you retreating on the second ghost train?" Timothy's voice boomed.
You don't understand how dangerous it is. That engine is more powerful than I will ever be. It's a force not to be reckoned with, and you need to heed this warning. Do not dance with the darkness. It is a train you cannot pull. I will try to help you rid of it, but only on one condition. Stay far away from here as possible. When it gets in this portal, there is a chance of the portal exploding."
Thomas and Percy understood the risk and took the help. "Welcome to the other side," puffed Thomas. Thomas, Percy and Timothy puffed in the nappered station.
I can sense it here.
Just then a whistle blew and the ghost train appeared in front of them. Timothy puffed bravely forward.
"So, we meet again. You have been ordered to leave with me and never return here again,"
said Timothy. Just then a bright light appeared and lines of trucks started rolling towards them. The trucks were thrown at Thomas and Percy. They held their brakes on hard.
You're coming back to the underworld with me.
"Where did they go?" asked Thomas. Thomas and Percy were puffing back home to the sheds. Suddenly, they stopped at a red signal. Then "Let me in, let me in."
to see more videos, click on these links here. And also, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and happy Halloween.